multiplying fractions in word problems. This video is to help you figure out whether you're multiplying in a word problem. And before we do that, let's look at it just picture-wise. What does multiplication mean? Well, anytime you have something like 2 times, that's an apple. 2 times apple, it literally means you have 2 apples. The number in front tells you how many of this little item you have. So if you put a half in front, it means the same thing. You get half of whatever it is. So you can think of each of these multiplications as some whole part that you're starting with, and you're going to get a fraction of it. So if you have 5/6, what would that look like? What is the multiplication of 5/6 times that one whole there? Hit pause and draw it for me. And there it is. You should have had that picture. So you just did a multiplication without using any numbers. You just drew a picture of it. And that's what it is. So when you look at multiplication, are you getting a portion of some giant whole? So let's look at our first problem to determine if this is multiplication. And obviously it is. Why would I put a problem in there that's not multiplication? So let's look at it and see why it is. Jim mowed 1/3 of the lawn. If the lawn is 300 square feet, how many square feet did Jim mow? So what they're giving us is this. It's 1/3 of the lawn. And when you think of it, that fraction is 1/3 of some whole. And that's what you want to look at. What is that whole? Well, that's the lawn. And then you go through the rest of the problem and see if there's a value given for that lawn. Is there a value given? Yes, it's 300. So this is what they're asking us. What is 1/3 of the 300 of that entire lawn? Which is, well, this is our fraction, right? So it's 1/3 times 300 over 1. And then we can reduce. Which leaves us with 100. And what is our unit? Square feet. So how many square feet did Jim mow? 100 square feet. Alright, so I want you to hit pause. Actually, let's just try it again. We'll do it together. If 2/3 of 30 students in this class love math, then how many students in this class love math? So it's 2/3 of some whole. What is that whole? Looking at the problem. Let's read it again. It's 2/3 of the 30 students. So that is a multiplication. We want 2/3 of those 30 students. And then that tells us, it says 2/3 of the 30 students in this class tells us how many love math. So if you do that multiplication, it leaves us with 20 students who love math. And that's when we use multiplication in there. Multiplication in a word problem. It's when we're getting a portion of some whole part. Okay? So I want you to look at this. What does 1/2 times 5 really mean? So when you see a half times 5, you're always thinking, oh, it's a half times 5. And you can do the work and know you get 5/2. But why? What does it really mean? Hit pause and I want you to think about it. So hit pause now. Alright, here's what it means. You have each of these numbers. So if you look up here, the last one we did, it's 2/3 of 30 students. The 30 tells us how many students there are. But basically our whole is the student. And then we're going to get 30 of them. And then we're going to get 2/3 of them. So if you see 1/2 times 5, each of these numbers represents a value. It represents a value of some quantity, some item. So I just drew a rectangle here. You could think of even an apple. I think apples are nice because they're what we've been using for a long time. So if we draw an apple, a little leaf on it, we have 1/2 times 5, and these numbers have to again be a representation of some kind of quantity. So we have 5 apples, and then we're going to get half of those 5. That's what it really means. It's half of 5 of something. It's half of 5 of something, some whole that we're given. So that's what it means. And that's why when you multiply it, you get 5/2. Because if you were to draw out 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you would get half of each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5/2 is our multiplication. But that's what you want to look at when when you do each of these word problems. Are you getting a portion of something? Each of those numbers represents a value of some quantity. All right. Here's the other way of looking at it. Fractions can also be repeated addition. So you have 2 times a fourth. That would mean you have, 2 1/4. And that means you have 1/4 plus 1/4. And then using our addition, we know it's a total of 2/4. And then if we reduce it, we get 1/2. That's what it means. It means 2/4. So if we had 6 2/3, 6 times 2/3, it's 6 2/3. So we'd have 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 2/3. Okay, barely fit it. All right, and there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. And then 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Well, that's 6 times 2, so that's 12/3, which is 12 divided by 3, 4. But that's what that multiplication means. It could mean 6 2/3 of some whole. What I'm getting at here is you can rewrite them in either way. You can have a fraction of some whole, which is some quantity of something, or you could just start with a fraction of something and then multiply that by a number. So if Jenny is left with 7 pizza boxes, each with 1/3 of a pizza in them, how many whole pizzas does Jenny have? So what we're getting here is a repeated addition. We have 7 pizza boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in each one of them we have 1/3 of, I'll put a p, 1/3 of 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 a p. And you could just sit there and add them all up, but multiplication is supposed to make this quicker. So what this means is we have 7 1/3 of pizzas. So that means we have, remember you can just multiply that to the top, 7/3 of a pizza. And then if we change it to a mixed number, which is in a different video, we get 2 1/3 pizzas. That's how many whole pizzas she has. So there's 2 different ways of looking at it with multiplication. You could have a fraction of some whole, or you could have a bunch of fractions that you have to multiply together. So now tell me, what does 5 times 1/2 really mean? So remember, these are backwards. Before it was 1/2 times 5. Now what's 5 times 1/2? Order really does matter here. Just for pictures. Multiplication-wise, it's going to be the same thing, 5/2. But what does it mean? I'll give you a hint. 5 times 1/2, and then we're going to put our apple back in there. There's a leaf. What would that actually mean? So hit pause and tell me. And here's what it means. It means you have 5 half apples. So it means you have half an apple, and you have 5 of them. So that means you would have 5 halves of an apple. Putting them all together, we have 2 1/2 apples. So you see, it's the same answer. We got 5 halves apples in either form. They are commutative, but they mean 2 different things. This means you have half of 5 apples, and this one means you have 5 half apples. So, thank you.